Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and this is Borderlands 3. As you might have already seen from the channel, recently I went to Los Angeles to get hands-on with the next Borderlands game, and I had a really good time. If you want a raw info dump or just to see a decent chunk of gameplay capture, there are 2 videos available now on the channel for your viewing pleasure. Since then, however, I've been mulling over exactly why it is I'm looking forward to the game's release on the 13th of September, and so I gathered my thoughts and made this 6 reasons we're excited for Borderlands 3. First up, the game's formula has been tightened up a lot. When the announcement was first made, I spent a lot of time wondering whether Borderlands 3 would be a drastically different game from its predecessors by simple dint of the fact the humble loot shooter is now a pretty crowded genre. With the likes of Destiny, The Division and Anthem crowding the scene, Borderlands 3 will be entering a very different market to the one that faced Borderlands 2 or Borderlands the pre-sequel. And yet, to my relief, they haven't really changed a thing. Instead, Gearbox has focused on refining what was already there, and the improvements are very welcome indeed. First and most importantly, the shooting mechanics are a lot tighter than we've seen before. The guns themselves feel really responsive, while the secondary fire options add a whole extra layer of variety and complexity to your chosen loadout. And there's also been a lot of work done to the movement mechanics. You can slide and mantle now, making for much smoother movement around the battlefield. Whereas before, plodding forward and strafing were about the limits of your abilities, Borderlands 3 makes it easy to play around with verticality and try for smooth and rapid flanks on the enemy forces. Certain player characters like Zane can also invest skill points in buffing their movement speed, speeding things up yet further. The improvements on the formula don't end there though. Loot drops are better managed this time round, with individual loot instancing, meaning each person sees loot differently and nobody can pinch what isn't rightfully theirs. A relief, surely, to anybody who suffered the pain of walking up to a really good bit of gear, only to have someone swoop in and grab it for themselves, like a hawk, with a massive ego. Talking of things being massive, the second reason we're excited for Borderlands 3 is the sheer size of the thing. While I only played for an hour and a half, with all that time spent on the planet Promethea, I nonetheless couldn't escape the sense that Borderlands 3 is going to be an enormous game. I asked about it, in fact, and was informed that yes, it's set to be bigger and longer than any game in the series so far. A lot of that, of course, will be down to the fact that Borderlands 3 allows you to hop between different planets for the first time in series history. Whereas the hub world of Sanctuary used to be a city, now it's a massive spaceship, a bit like the Battlestar Galactica. If you pop up to the bridge, you can zip off to different systems and explore other worlds. From the trailer that aired at the end of Gearbox's gameplay reveal, it looks like these worlds are going to be pretty varied, and hopefully they'll also be numerous. We'll have to wait and see on that front, but I am hopeful nonetheless. With diverse planets, of course, come diverse enemies, which is the next reason I'm really looking forward to Borderlands 3. While they're undoubtedly gross, I have to admit I have a soft spot for the skags of the Borderlands series, and the bullymongs of Borderlands 2 were absolutely brilliant. It looks like we're going to get quite a few new wild creatures to face off against in the latest sequel, which is absolutely fine by me. Although, while we're talking about the monsters of Borderlands, the Rack can absolutely get in the bin, the flying little bastards. Anyway, the increased enemy diversity doesn't end there. As I mentioned in my other video, we're going to get a look at the forces of weapons factorer Maliwan for the very first time, and there are even female psychos to contend with. The latter is a particularly sweet detail. Apparently Gearbox was motivated to design lady psychos after seeing how many female Borderlands fans would cosplay as them at conventions and events, meaning those fans directly influence the shape of the next game. It's a nice nod. It's not just your enemies who have a few new fresh faces in the mix, mind you. Borderlands 3 sees a whole raft of new characters coming to the fore, including previously unseen player characters and NPCs alike. Lorelei, one of the most prominent quest givers on Promethea, is loads of fun to interact with. She's feisty, violent, and she also has a good sense of humour. The smaller characters are fun too. In one mission called Rise and Grind, I had to help bring a local coffee shop back online because Lorelei was craving a bit of caffeine. The bot in charge of the operation, the aptly named Barista Bot, was of course every bit the stereotypical hipster, both caring a lot about the integrity of his product and yet somehow managing to be really annoying while talking about it. In a particularly nice touch, he was relatively unadorned when we first met, at which point the power to the coffee shop was down. The minute it was restored, however, the barista bot gained a neon handlebar moustache.
No, take your time. I don't have anywhere else to be.
While I'm undoubtedly excited to see who the other new characters are in Borderlands 3, I have to admit the returning characters from previous games are also cause for excitement. Say what you will about Borderlands, it definitely knows how to get people to make an entrance. Lilith, my personal favourite character in Borderlands history, is now in charge, calling the shots for the Crimson Raiders. As we saw from the demo's tour of Sanctuary, other familiar faces also make a return, including weapons dealer Marcus and medic Dr. Tannis, who I'm pleased to report is just as happy to get her hands, and all the rest of her, very, very dirty.
Anyone home?
Just a moment. Almost there.
Just grim. Anyway, I briefly mentioned the new player characters earlier, and indeed, I had a really good time playing as Zane. Most of the reason I had so much fun, of course, was down to his skills, which, funnily enough, is the next reason we're excited for Borderlands 3. The skills system has been completely overhauled for the latest Borderlands, with 3 action skills now available for each player character to unlock, as opposed to the traditional 1. It makes for a really great deal of variety and, if you're playing as Zane, you can have 2 of these skills available at any one time. I've already waxed lyrical about Zane's skills, of course, and with good reason. Sending out a drone and swapping with a copy of yourself to get out of the way of danger or flank your enemies is great fun, and using both at the same time makes you feel really powerful. I didn't get to talk about Amara's powers, however, because I didn't get to play as her during my hands-on time. But I've had a good look since, and I can tell you her 3 siren abilities are Phase Slam, where she fires herself up and then does a big ground pound, damaging any enemies caught in the blast radius and sending them up in the air. There's Phase Cast, where she shoots out a spectral version of herself that damages anyone unfortunate enough to be caught in its path. And then there's Phase Grasp, which shoots a big fist out of the ground to seize hold of enemies and pin them in place for a bit, allowing you to pour damage into them while they're vulnerable. Some enemies are immune, but will take a chunk of damage instead, so either way, it's a really useful skill. While I expect I'll play as Zane on my first trip through Borderlands 3, Sirens are low-key my absolute favourites, and it's nice to see Amara comes with a full complement of spooky skills to put to use. And the final reason we're really excited for Borderlands 3 is that 5 years on from the pre-sequel and 7 years since Borderlands 2, Borderlands 3 manages to feel like a breath of fresh air as far as loot shooters go. As I mentioned at the start of this video, there are quite a lot of loot shooters out there these days. However, by sticking determinedly to its formula, it's managed to emphasise just how different it is to Destiny, The Division, and Anthem. It's not a quintessential game as service obsessed with a big grind to hit a level cap and then proceed from there. It's a bloody big story game with 4-player co-op built in. Of course, you still go through new guns at a rate of knots, and it's all about making numbers pop out of men using bullets and explosives, but blessedly, that remains the central focus. And while there will be cosmetic items available for sale, as there have been in previous titles, there won't be any premium currency or any microtransactions that affect the actual gameplay experience, and that is a profound relief. And there you have it, 6 reasons we're excited for Borderlands 3. Are you looking forward to it? let us know in the comments below. Hopefully you found this video interesting. If you did, there are loads more for you to watch on Borderlands 3 and other topics, so feel free to give one of those a click. Do like, subscribe, and ring that bell icon so you don't miss anything else from Eurogamer, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.